Today's Democrat socialists pulling the same scam that we have seen for decades. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. One of the bigger disappointments while watching the rise of socialism in this country is seeing how easily these candidates are able to dupe millions of people with no grasp of history at all. The DSA candidates right now sound just like the future dictators that would turn around and so deeply scar the world in our past. Voters fall for it, party leaders fall for it, the media seems to fall for it, and nobody seems to understand what we're watching right now. Candidates who have openly hated this country, openly hated the West for years, are now gaining in popularity and surging by promising that they just want to bring health care, equity, and cheaper groceries. That's it. We've seen this before, and somehow nobody sees it happening right in front of our face. Take a listen to the very radical Angie Nixon, the Democrat Senate candidate, on CNN. This is how she sounds right before a general election.
There are some critical Hispanic communities, Latino communities in Florida who have had experiences with leaders in Central and South America who hear the word socialist and think about national socialists. What would you say to them about your embrace of that label?
So what I would say to them is that I totally understand where they're coming from, and I hear and realize that some of them have experienced some trauma. I want folks to know that I have always actively fought against anything that has come from a government that is said to be oppressive or keep people down, right? Including this president of the United States, Donald Trump, right?
I know people have had some trauma, like a communist killing a lot of people and destroying their country, but I've always been for going against oppression. Great answer. I feel so much better now. The psychopath who uses a bullhorn to scream about race in the Florida House, who's called to end prisons and defund police, really just wants to lower my grocery bill and protect me from oppression. I'm very confident of that because she sounds so normal now on CNN. Angie Nixon also says that housing is a right. This is a great new one from the left in this country. Housing is now a right. Since when? How does anybody have the right to force somebody else to build a home for them to live in? Think about that when they say that. Housing is a right. These are communist talking points, one after the other. And it serves as a reminder that historically, these kinds of promises have been made by people like Pol Pot, Stalin, Chavez, Castro. In fact, take a listen to a young Fidel Castro right after he took control of Cuba a long time ago.
When we took the power, which were our systems? Free press to everybody, free ideas, free religion belief, and all those rights, those human rights that we could establish. Real democracy is not possible over hungry people.
Free ideas, free press, lots of freedom. How long did that last in Cuba? He sounds just like every DSA candidate coming up on a general election. A communist is a communist is a communist. And we're surrounded by them right now. And there's a lot of acting. Mamdani always has that big smile on his face. So happy to be here. Just wants to help. Go back and look at his old videos. You see who he really is. Silver spoon, angry little Marxist. Just a rich kid that hates this country, wants to tear it apart. In Michigan, Abdul El Sayed dances to pop songs. Listen. Very desperate to be seen as culturally safe enough to ease the very justified concerns about who he really is and about his ideology. After all, El Sayed appears to be immersed in radical Islam, after all, as well as being a Marxist, very anti-Western in every possible way. His father-in-law, his mother, tied to extreme radical terrorist Islam. Muslim Brotherhood, other groups. A little Whitney Houston is supposed to fix all that, right? Oh, I like that song. He must be okay. But a deep dive from the Washington Free Beacon found El Sayed's bookshelf right behind him in many live television hits, loaded with Islamist and terror propaganda. Books from terror supporters, proponents of Sharia law, authors who defend the bravery of Islamic suicide bombers. Just connect the dots. This is all an act. Look at the people that he spends time with. Look at Hassan Piker, smiling, laughing at a pool party together. This guy.
We're going to keep bringing in immigrants into this country on purpose, just so they can your sister, and then maybe even your daughter. We're going to destroy the white race. That's what we're here to do.
That's what they're here to do. They're not here to dance to Whitney Houston. They're not here to make your groceries cheaper. You really think that's who these people are, what they're presenting to you right now, what they're talking about? He is the Red-Green Alliance, El Sayed. They have one goal, and that is end the West as we know it. They hate this place, but they dance. But to get there, to do what they actually want, they have to pretend that they just want to save you money.
It just shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this hard to afford your groceries or fill up your tank or worry about getting sick without having to worry about losing everything too.
You really think he cares at all about your grocery bill? And by the way, the irony of all this is that these are the same people that are going to skyrocket the price of everything because they're going to make the government bigger. And the bigger that budget gets, as we've just seen with $40 trillion in debt, the bigger that budget gets, the more everything in your world costs. And they want the government to be huge. You really think he cares about any of that? Or is he just smart enough to realize that in this country, you can win a hell of a lot of power by just promising free stuff? Spineless Jewish Senator Chuck Schumer is now backing Abdul El Sayed. Take a listen.
Look, the bottom line is we're going to win Michigan. Let me tell you why we're going to win Michigan. First, El Sayed has brought in new energy and new talent into the Democratic Party, but also in Michigan itself.
Chuck Schumer is Jewish, by the way, although the president contends he's actually a Palestinian because of the way he behaves. And maybe Trump is right, because nobody has been more willing to desecrate their heritage than Chuck Schumer, the final boss of the self-hating Jews. El Sayed just got $175,000 from CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations. This is a group that openly celebrated the October 7th attacks. And Chuck Schumer now says he's very excited about their candidate. Alina Fernandez is a daughter of former Cuban dictator Fidel Castro, and she joins us now. And it's an honor to have you on, and thank you so much for joining us. The daughter of Fidel Castro, that's just a wild thing to start with. But let's start here. Communists don't get elected promising to take away your freedom and bankrupt the country, do they? They get elected by sounding just like the people that are talking right now.
They don't. They don't. They come under the pretext that they are just socialists. But you have to remember that it was Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, the first to apply the theory to practice in Russia, the one that said that socialism is only but the first step to communism. So don't allow yourself to be fooled by the speeches.
Don't allow yourself to be fooled. That's well said. I want to show this to you. This is Hassan Piker, who's one of the more popular extremists in this country, very popular with young people, pushing these socialist candidates. This is what he said about your father.
There are very few people that have existed on this planet as incredible as Fidel Castro and Che Guevara. Like, as close to perfect as you can be in every way, shape, and form. I love Lenin, I love Fidel Castro, and I love Che Guevara. They are genuinely fucking heroes.
Heroes. What would you say to that young man?
What can I say? I mean, he should be in a nut house because he's spreading lies and he's doing all of us wrong. Millions of victims of communist regimes are living now in America or other parts around the world. Millions of Cuba had risked their life in the Strait of Florida just to escape that piece of hell. And this man is just disrespecting all of us.
What made you break free? What made you see the light? I mean, you're the daughter of a communist dictator. When did you open your eyes?
Maybe when I was very young. I always felt uncomfortable. I always realized that I was lied to. These people have a way to make you do something pretending it's the contrary. For example, we have like voluntary work, but it was mandatory. So with these people screaming and violence is the way, an insult is the way they impose themselves.
Yeah.
And we are not
Yeah.
going to be safe from that. I encourage you to keep exposing these people
Yeah.
with their own words.
With their own words. That's well said. Alina Fernandez, the daughter of former Cuban dictator Fidel Castro. Alina, thank you so much for joining us tonight. All right, we've got more to talk about on this issue, but really quick, we're going to take a fast break because the president is speaking right now in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. This is a rally for Lindsey Graham's sister. That's Senator Darlene Graham, ahead of the Republican primary runoff election, which is next Tuesday. She takes on Ralph Norman. Let's take a listen to the president for just a moment.
All 3 times. But Henry McMaster, I have to say, did very well also. Where's Henry? There he is. He did very well. He's been with me from day one, right, Henry? And I want to just let you know I'm thrilled to be back with thousands of hardworking, God-fearing, true, unbelievable American patriots. That's where you are, front row Joe. We have front row Joes all over the place. We have the ladies from North Carolina. That's okay, right over there. They've been to 252 rallies. I can't believe it. I don't know how their husband puts up with it. They have these nice husbands. But I don't see them with you tonight. Thank you very much. It's been an honor. We've had a roll from 2016, right? From 2016, so many rallies, and we love them, and we love our front row Joes. They always get front row. I don't know how they do it. And I want to say hello to a very special person that's with us tonight, Darlene. Because Darlene is somebody I've known for a long time. I asked her to do this. I said, Darlene, you got to do it. Because everyone loves her, everyone respects her. I've known her through Lindsey. I've known her for a long time. I think Lindsey respected Darlene more than any other person he knows, including me. That does not make me happy. I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy about that, but one of those things. But with your help this November, we're going to stop the radical left, Democrat, communists here in South Carolina and all across the nation. And we're going to elect Senator Darlene Graham to fight for South Carolina and to always put America first. She only knows how to put America first. She will be somebody you're going to be very proud. You vote for her, you're going to be very proud of that vote. The first step is winning the runoff election this Tuesday. You have to get out August 25th. You have to get out and vote. And we need every South Carolina patriot to go to the polls and vote for Darlene Graham, if you would. And the polls are open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So on Tuesday, get out and vote. You got to get out to find your polling place. SwampTheVoteUSA.com. Swamp the vote.
All right, so that's a little bit of the president. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And he's stumping for Darlene Graham. You've got this Senate primary runoff for the Republicans on Tuesday between Darlene Graham, the sister of Lindsey Graham, and Ralph Norman, a congressman from the state that's also very popular, also very much behind the president. So he chose Darlene Graham, likely out of just, loyalty to Lindsey Graham, who he was close to until he died of that heart attack. But it's going to be an interesting primary to watch coming up here on Tuesday. You can watch the rest of that speech, if you'd like, in Myrtle Beach on Newsmax Plus by downloading the app right there on the screen. All right, let's move on.
If you're among the majority of Democratic voters that woke up feeling, hopeless, because the person who won does not represent your values, just know there is still hope. To the vast majority of people across Michigan who do not want to throw their support behind a campaign filled with anger, divisiveness, calls for violence, and the views that are out of touch with your values, you have a home with us.
All right, this is a pretty good play here. In Michigan, Republican Senate candidate Mike Rogers is reaching across the aisle, asking Democrat voters to join the fight to stop the socialist Abdul El-Sayed. Rogers working to flip the Democrat-held Senate seat this November, unveiling a Democrats for Rogers coalition filled with defectors from the Democrat Party that are terrified of this candidate, Abdul El-Sayed. Take a look.
I do not think people really realize what is on the line. Abdul al-Sayed is completely unfit to represent any piece of Michigan. The Jewish community, the African-American community, the Chaldean, or even Arab Americans. So as someone who votes Democrat usually, I am proud this time to support Mike Rogers.
I'm a lifelong Democrat. I voted for Obama, I voted for Hillary, I voted for Biden, and now I'm voting for Mike Rogers. The Democratic nominee that we've been given does not share my values, and he does not agree with a world that I want my children to grow up in.
All right, Rabbi Asher Lopatin from the Orthodox Synagogue in Detroit is one of those Democrats, and he joins us tonight. Rabbi, thank you so much for coming on. Give us your concerns. Obviously, they're pretty steep to be making this move.
Yeah, thanks so much, and it's great to be on your show. And I have to say, I'm speaking in a personal capacity, but I do happen to be a rabbi of a synagogue. And, you know, it's even beyond values. It's really someone who has such a hateful campaign, and I consider trolling and anti-Semitic stereotypes. I'm surprised the Democratic Party is allowing someone like that to run for office. We wouldn't allow a racist. We wouldn't allow someone who's a homophobe run. And so I feel that it's dangerous for the Democratic Party. The worst thing for the Democratic Party would be if he wins.
Well, the concern, I think, for a lot of people, obviously, anti-Semitism is one of them, but also just what does this man actually believe? What ideology does he actually subscribe to? Because it seems like he's concealing a lot. And if you saw that Free Beacon story that we mentioned in the monologue about the bookshelf behind him and the authors that he seems to collect, that he seems to read, these are very anti-Western ideas that his bookshelf is loaded up with. Very Islamist, anti-everything that the West kind of stands for. It seems that he is consuming that information while he's trying to dance around to Whitney Houston and portray himself as this kind of Western Egyptian guy. I don't think that's who he is.
Well, he's a very smart politician. And one of the things I have been disappointed with and I'm scared of is that he's never recognized the Jews as a people. He's never said that I've seen the Jewish people. And so, yeah, I think he is using anti-Semitic tropes, and that's I'm coming as a rabbi and as a Jew. But I think you're right. It's a much broader thing. It's something that other communities, not just Jews, should not tolerate. And it's dangerous. And they're, I think, using AIPAC and Israel as a foil for really knocking down the system that we know.
Yeah, it's very, very, very anti-Western, everything that we kind of believe. There's a lot of candidates that seem to hate this country, hate this system, and they're all on their very best behavior right now because they need to win a general election in November. We're seeing a lot of that. Rabbi, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, coming up here, a sports writer calls it quits after his newspaper silences his piece on WNBA star Sophie Cunningham. Matt Calkins joins us coming up next to tell us that story. Plus, later in News from the Left, another European nation bans Islamic head coverings.
Information. Truth. Is power. Is freedom. Is money. Is health. Is Newsmax. Millions watch it. So can you. Newsmax is real news for real people.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
This is our time, you know? His favorite route is the long way around. Now we can take it again. I'm not sure who loves this freedom more, him or me.
Being out here alone is my happy place. Nature can have its threats, but I'm prepared.
I'm not trying to fight wildlife. I just don't want one bad encounter deciding everything.
Carry confidence wherever you go with Byrna. And now it's the biggest sale ever at Byrna.com.
My name is Whitney Allen, and I'm a widow. My husband, Ryan, died. We never thought in a million years we'd have to use life insurance. With Ethos, it's so fast and easy. Get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
you Sunday, Jim. Whoa! Delivery.
Thanks, Kurt.
You like that? See you Sunday, Jim.
Sunday.
See you Sunday. See you Sunday.
See you Sunday.
I just got my pilot's license. See you Sunday.
The whole town can feel it. Sunday's coming.
The NFL on CBS, streaming all season on Paramount Plus.
See you Sunday.
That's my boy Cam Scattermove.
Whoa!
All right, welcome back. Tonight, a look at just how dirty our media seems to remain. A longtime Seattle Times sports columnist named Matt Calkins quit his job recently, citing the WNBA Sophie Cunningham saga as the last straw for him at this paper. Calkins wrote a piece about two young Cunningham fans who support only women in women's sports. One was allegedly cursed out and verbally assaulted by one of Seattle's co-owners at a basketball game in Seattle where Cunningham was playing with her team from Indiana. Celeste Keaton, the one in the middle, chewing out young girls for supporting only women in women's sports. Matt's column essentially stated supporting the separation of biological females and males doesn't automatically make you transphobic. So let's stop throwing around these labels. Calkins says his bosses then passed the piece around before eventually killing it. It was never published. And Matt Calkins joins us now to talk about that. Matt, thanks for coming on. Explain how this all went down.
Yeah, well, I went to a rally for Sophie Cunningham outside of a Storm Fever game in Seattle, and I talked to a girl who had been bullied or who lost to a biological male in 8th grade and was just speaking out against, or wanted that separation between biological males and females. Yep. And talked to her. Then I talked to another girl who gets cursed out every day at school because she didn't want to play against a biological boy in high school and had to share a locker room with that person. And I just wanted to put their stories out there because they were very adamant that they were not anti-trans. This is just pro-women. We don't have anything against trans people. But so I wanted to get that message out there. Seattle Times looked at it for 6 days, didn't want to run it. And I said, I think I'm done.
And that it kind of tracks with the other experiences you've had. You've said that they've killed some other of your columns as well. One was questioning whether players for the U.S. women's soccer team are really the victims of discrimination in their equal pay lawsuit. Another column regarding George Floyd's death implored people to listen to state champion basketball coach Mike Bethea, who was a black man urging the public to not stereotype cops. It sounds like the paper you were working at has a clear ideological line that you were crossing, and they were just very far on one side.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. Anytime I tried to go against the newsroom, the prevailing newsroom narratives, my column tended to get shut down. If I just wanted to write other stories about, I typically write about just sports. I don't always write about when sports meet politics. I don't think people want to read that every day. But anytime I would kind of go against the grain, they just weren't feeling it. And they would always give a reason. Oh, you're not being empathetic. Oh, you're not seeing this side of the story. But I would see all kinds of other columns get in our paper as long as they had one point of view. And if I had a different one, it just became an event.
It's so clear what's happening in these places, and you wonder, especially when you're talking about sports, because I just don't think that there's many people. I don't think there's many people that follow sports that agree with the ideology that's taken over that newsroom, the ideology that's taken over the WNBA, at least at the top. What do you do now? Where do you think you're going to go?
Well, right now I have a Substack that I started. That has already gotten like 3,000 subscribers. I think a lot of people have responded to the fact that, if you stand up for this, stand up for something you believe in, your people are going to have your back. And I also think it showed that there's kind of a starvation among sports fans to have these common sense perspectives that the media often deprives them of. And so I think that was very refreshing to me to see that.
The Substack for Matt Calkins, and let's see where you land. Somebody's going to pick you up because there's a huge demand for the kind of stories that you write and for realism in sports. So we appreciate you coming on. Matt, thanks so much. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, when exactly did so many American women go insane? The social contagion leading women to militantly support a mother accused of strangling her 3 kids, a woman that admitted to doing so. Over $1 million in donations have poured in. That story coming up next.
Romero Morales overstayed a visa and murdered my child.
Are the Democratic Party's political interests endangering the lives of Americans? Why are Americans' rights being trampled for illegal aliens? Watch Newsfront, America Under Siege.
These days, supporting the right causes matters more than ever. That's why I chose Patriot Mobile. They're not just a great mobile service provider, they're all about giving back. Every bill helps support causes we believe in. family, faith, and freedom. You get great nationwide coverage on all 3 main networks. Even better, you're doing it with an American company that stands up for us. It's time to make the switch, y'all. Let's support a wireless company that's got our back. Go to patriotmobile.com and make the switch today.
At Bright Star Care, our nurse-led care anticipates needs before they are voiced. We'll be there.
Hi, I'm Mike Hammond with Signal Relief. If your back bothers you day after day, you know it doesn't just affect your back. It changes how you stand, walk, sleep, and how you feel about yourself. Maybe you smile through the grandkids' game, the grocery store, the yard work, or the family trip, quietly counting the minutes until you must sit down, or maybe you just miss those moments altogether. I know how frustrating it is when your body starts making decisions for you. And that's why I'm proud to introduce Signal Core, our new back support system built specifically for everyday backaches. More technology means more relief, and Signal Core has twice the technology as the original patch, and it comes with our money-back guarantee. It's targeted drug-free back support that you can wear through the day. Try Signal Core today by going to signalrelief.com and order your Signal Core.
This is the Bearskin Sunbeater hoodie, and when you wear this, you get UPF 50 sun protection without all the sunscreen mess.
Did we get your ears?
Let's do your neck one more time. The Sunbeater hoodie covers your neck, your arms, even the back of your hands. No more reapplying. Lightweight, breathable, dries out in minutes.
Need some help with your back?
The Bearskin Sunbeater hoodie. Buy 2, get 1 free at sunhoodie.tv. No sunscreen bottles were harmed in the making of this advertisement. Please make sure to use sunscreen for your face. But for everywhere else, you can wear the Bearskin Sunbeater hoodie.
This is our time, you know? His favorite route is the long way around. Now we can take it again. I'm not sure who loves this freedom more, him or me.
Being out here alone is my happy place. Nature can have its threats, but I'm prepared.
I'm not trying to fight wildlife. I just don't want one bad encounter deciding everything.
Carry confidence wherever you go with Byrna. And now it's the biggest sale ever at Byrna.com.
All right, welcome back. The defense in the Lindsay Clancy trial rested their case in court this afternoon. The Massachusetts mom, who initially admitted to strangling her 3 kids to death in January 2023, but is now claiming insanity. Clancy's attorneys say she is the victim in this, suffering from a postpartum psychosis and bipolar disorder that was exacerbated by a dangerous cocktail of 13 powerful psychiatric medications. Clancy says that voices told her to kill her own children, and that she was failed by the system despite crying out for help. Prosecutors say the murders were deliberate and premeditated, alleging that Lindsay sent her husband out to pick up medication and takeout, giving her time. While he was gone, she strangled the 3 kids with exercise bands in the basement of their home. She then tried to commit suicide, cutting her wrists and jumping from a 2nd-story window. She survived that. The 2nd story is not high enough, but she paralyzed herself. She's in a wheelchair in the courtroom. Perhaps equally as terrifying, though, as the case itself is this video. Clancy's family has received over $1 million in donations on GoFundMe from supporters. She's become somewhat of a hero to thousands of women in this country, thousands of very deranged women who identify with a child killer. She's become like a cult hero. Crowds outside the courthouse every single day, some of them carrying their kids. How twisted is that? Taking pictures with her attorney and humiliating themselves on national TV.
I felt like the system failed her. She was begging for help and no one was there.
I just wanted to support Lindsay and just say it could be, you know, one of my sister-in-laws, it could be one of my best friends, and it could be me.
The woman you see now is completely different from the woman who did that to her kids. She can be a wonderful, loving mother.
Just a reminder, this is a woman that strangled 3 children, her own 3 babies. 1, 2, 3 times. Amy Robbins is a Newsmax contributor and host of the Amy Robbins Show. Isabel Brown, host of the Isabel Brown Show. Ladies, Amy, I'll start with you. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. I mean, we've seen some deranged stuff. We saw with, O.J. Simpson, it turned into a black and white thing, and they were cheering for him. This is somebody's own babies.
Yeah.
I've never seen this.
Yeah, this is such a tragedy. We have seen moms do this, in the past, and this is horrific on all accounts, but we're seeing 2 parallel things happen right now. We are seeing the justice system trying to play out, where the jury is going to have to wrestle with, is this a psychosis event, or is this murder? But then we also have a larger scale issue going on within our entire culture, where we are seeing this moral inversion, where women are showing up at this court and they are cheering for this woman, and they're trying to basically turn this killer into the primary victim. And so I think this has sparked a national conversation where we're trying to figure out, where does compassion for the mental health of a mom end, and then where does justice for 3 murdered children begin?
I think that's a great question, Isabel. It's one thing, I think, to understand that this was a troubled woman. But it's also quite another when you do look at the facts of the case and you see that she planned, or at least prosecutors allege, and I think they have the evidence to support it, that she got her husband out of the house so that she could do this. This wasn't just like momentary insanity. I mean, she strangled 1 child, then she did another, then she did the 3rd. That has to be, allegedly, that has to be considered by these women that are standing outside cheering for her.
One would think, and certainly one would hope, the facts of this case are just unbelievably chilling, particularly as a young mom reading through the court documents, listening to so much of the testimony happening in the courtroom, and then horrifyingly seeing how women are responding to this on the internet. I'm seeing very little compassion and process for justice for these 3 children being called for online. And yet I can't tell you, Rob, how many thousands of posts I have seen on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram in the last 24 hours from women coming forward saying, same Lindsay, or I see myself in Lindsay, or that just as easily could have been me, spurring a national conversation about just how little American women seem to value the precious lives of our children, given the rampant abortion culture that we live in today. It is horrifying, and yet we've raised more than $1 million as a society for this woman who is now sitting in court, and thousands of women online are saying is innocent or deserves not to be punished at all for the methodical strangling of her own children.
I thought one of the best tweets I saw this week that really told the story of this was, if she had killed her dog, not one single woman would be outside of that courthouse supporting her. I think, Amy, that's dead on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you this, that we are seeing this, not just in this case. I really do think that this is an indictment on our cultural as a whole, because you look at, they were doing the same thing with the Luigi Mangione case. They were making the killer the primary victim. And then we start to see these women, remember with the recent late-term abortion ruling in Minnesota, the women were applauding and cheering that could happen. So this just goes to show you how much we have devalued life in our society, and how we have this just crazy moral inversion going on. And we're seeing this across the span of everything nationally right now.
So that's so dead on. Amy, Isabel, thanks so much, ladies. We appreciate it. Twisted story. We'll see how this trial ends. All right, coming up here after the break, after Trump declared economic D-Day against Iran, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the regime will collapse, is now threatening to leave any nation in economic oblivion if they don't cut ties with the mullahs. We've got that next with Dr. Savage.
When you're in the news business, it never stops. News is always breaking, and it's my job to get you the news, no spin, no BS. If you don't believe us, just watch us.
Watch Finnerty, weeknights, only on Newsmax.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that, no needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at dropthepounds.com/slim.
For years, I was hiding my drinking. I'm the type of drinker that I don't just have one. I didn't want to feel that urge anymore. That's what brought me to War Health. I'm a better dad. I'm a better husband. I just have a more grounded and present life, thanks to War Health.
Text Newsmax to 710-710 to learn more.
Several days ago, my plane crashed in the wild. Good job, buddy. I'll get you home.
The night has come, and all the land is dark.
I got you. Go on, boy.
Heart of the Beast. New trailer online now.
Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consults are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528. Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consults are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528.
They have no money. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They are not paying their soldiers. They're not paying their police. They have 350% inflation. So we're just going to sort of see what happens. We have total control of that entire region having to do with the Strait of Hormuz. And that means well into it, the land areas.
All right, welcome back. On President Trump's orders, the U.S. is carrying out economic D-Day against Iran, Trump vowing the most crushing economic operation ever taken against any country. Economic warfare and isolation on an unprecedented scale. It's a major shift in how we're handling the situation in Iran. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, at the forefront of this. He told this show last week to expect unprecedented economic isolation levied against the Islamic Republic. That has now started. Bessent also saying any remaining tie to Tehran will hasten other nations' economic oblivion as well, whether that tie be purposefully constructed or willfully ignored. Bessent telling CNBC he'll announce more details at a Monday press conference, but says the Iranian regime is going to collapse. Take a listen.
This is going to be the greatest coordinated economic isolation in the history of the world. And if you insist on doing business with them, either transferring money, buying their oil, then the U.S. Treasury and the U.S. government, they will put its full might and force toward enforcing against you. We are going to squash the economy of this murderous regime, and it is a 1-2 punch. We have the blockade, and we are going to have the toughest sanctions in history, and it is going to work in Iran, and we are going to collapse this regime.
We are going to collapse this regime, he finishes with. That's regime change via economic strangulation. Sounds like is the plan. Dr. Michael Savage joins us now. I actually think we're moving in a good direction after being a little concerned about how this was going for a couple of months. I feel more positive about this. I think Scott Bessent is good at what he does, and he's been very effective in this. What are your thoughts?
I support getting tough with the mullahs, but I don't expect them to fold rather quickly. These are fanatics. These are religious fanatics. They don't live in our century mentally. I don't care what I don't think they care about our economics. They do up to a point. I don't think they're suddenly going to see it our way. Now, look, we have warships protecting oil tankers going through the southern part of the Strait of Hormuz. Good. Gunboat diplomacy has always worked, and it's working again. And that's what our expensive Navy is for. That's why we spend billions of dollars a year on it, is to basically project and protect our economic enterprises around the world. So that's good. But I don't see this collapsing a regime that is very similar to the one that ran 1 million young boys over Iraqi minefields during the Iran-Iraq war. I mentioned that this earlier on X, Rob. These are not people who think the way we do. So when they were willing to sacrifice young boys, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, and run them through marshes into Iraq over minefields and kill their own children against Iraq, no less, a fellow Muslim country, admittedly a different sect of Islam, why would we think they're going to cave into Donald Trump's toughness? I don't think they're going to do it. And I'm not trying to be
is it a matter is it a matter of caving into Donald Trump's toughness? I want to tell you something that KT McFarland told me last week. She made a good point. First off, we're trying something we've never tried before. It's very easy to assume that it's not going to work because nothing has worked in 50 years. But she said, I mean, if we squeeze them really tight, she did make a good point. These are pretty intelligent people that live in this country. And she said 90 million people are not going to starve to death. If we are going for economic strangulation to this country, at some point, something has to give, right?
Not when they've killed 40 to 50,000 of their own protesters. What's to stop them from killing another 50,000? Yeah. You know, that's like saying if we bomb Nazi Germany, the Nazis are going to give up. It didn't work. That's the unfortunate truth. Germany had to be reduced to rubble for the Nazis to give up. These fanatics don't give up. They're not like us. They have no rational core in their being, Rob. I mean, I'm not trying to be, negative on everything, but I'm not going to go along and say, yes, I think this is going to work. I don't think it's going to work. It's better than being passive. It's better than being a Democrat. It's better than going along with them and sending them $50 billion to say, please stop. Right. I understand we need to hit them with a hammer, but I don't know how much we can hit them until they're finally going to collapse. I don't know if they will.
I don't know if they will either, but as you said, it was certainly better than doing nothing, because I do trust the assessment from Trump has earned a lot of trust in foreign policy from his voters. And I think when he says that there was a belief that this was going to get really ugly, that Iran was going to get to a place where they were going to be able to make some kind of move against the greater West. I believe that. I don't think that this guy that hates war so much and has criticized war his entire adult life very blatantly is going to just decide to go become a war tourist in Iran. I just don't see that as what happened.
One of the reasons I backed Donald Trump in 2015 when others were calling him every name under the sun is because I said he's a businessman, not a politician, and businessmen don't like war unless they're in the war business, and Trump was never in the war business. No. And so business has always been separate from war unless you're in the war business. In fact, war is bad for business, just as if we look at go back to the mafia in America, popular movies. They always said, the smart ones, we got to stop the killing on the streets, for example, of Chicago and New York, because it's bad for business. It's the same on an international stage. Trump knows it's bad for business. War is bad for business. So he's fundamentally a businessman, not a politician. Unfortunately, there's a whole wing of this government that are politicians and are in the war business, Rob, and they're also advising this situation. I don't see a way out of it other than a maximum hammer down upon that poor nation, and a lot of innocent people have to be killed in order for that to happen. God forbid we get to that point. It may have to happen. I don't know where this is going to go. I don't think it's going to end just because we're getting tough militarily and economically. And by the way, you raised the economic issue. Yes, there's a whole class of people who work in Iran. They drive to work, they go to work, they collect a check, or they get it transferred into their banks. If they're economically starved to death and they don't have money coming in, then you're going to see hell to pay in Iran. But how are they going to do it? They don't have weapons. There's no First or Second Amendment. How are they going to do it? They're going to get slaughtered in the streets by the IRGC.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. I really don't. But I know it's a really tricky situation. I still don't think it makes it the wrong decision to try and neutralize a nation that has been, I think, the most evil in the world for a very long time, and obviously had very sinister intentions moving into the future, was obviously working toward a nuclear weapon. I got to leave it there. Dr. Savage, good to have you on. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me on this Friday.
All right, so we all know about big money in politics, but there are indications that the era of the power of big money could be ending. Democrat radicals like Abdul El-Sayed, Angie Nixon winning their primary elections despite being heavily outraised by their opponents recently. In Abdul El-Sayed's race, Congresswoman Haley Stevens spent $52 million. He spent $5, and he won. Angie Nixon raised $975,000. Alexander Vindman raised more than $16 million. She won. But this pattern isn't just happening on the left. You had Ken Paxton defeating John Cornyn despite being outspent by over $50 million. The rhinos were all in on Cornyn. Didn't work. Dick Morris says big money ain't what it used to be in politics, and he joins us tonight with that. Dick,
good.
It is interesting, right?
Well, it's fascinating. Yeah. Campaign finance reform by the government never worked. But when you show donors that their money's wasted and that they can't buy an election, that's going to work. The reason money is losing its power is social media.
Right.
Not that paid media is not important. Fox ads on Newsmax still work. and the KG network media, too.
Right, yeah.
But the point is that once you reach a certain level of exposure and you're out there, everybody knows you, they know your policies, spending $50 million more doesn't help you. Having an ad on every 10 minutes as opposed to every 2 hours isn't the answer.
Right.
And what's happening increasingly is that politicians are bidding up the amount of money they're spending. Basically, the donors are staking them to huge amounts of money, buying influence, but they're buying influence with the wrong people, people that are going to lose.
Well, you see Angie Nixon screaming in a bullhorn, you know, walking around the Florida House, I mean, acting ridiculous. That's how you go viral. You have Abdul El-Sayed dancing to Whitney Houston songs. I mean, this attention-starved behavior is how these people are winning elections.
Well, they're winning it also by having strongly leftist point of views on the left and consistent pro-Trump views on the right.
Yeah.
The reason Paxton defeated Cornyn is that Paxton was more pro-Trump and did more of Trump's policies on immigration. The reason that El-Sayed beat Stevens is that she's a communist.
Right.
And the Democratic Party has moved so far to the left. The reason it's moved to the left, I've said this before, is that Democrats leave the Democratic Party and moderates.
Yeah.
And the only people left are the communists, the jihadists, and the crazies. And they have a majority.
Let me ask you about J.D. Vance before I let you go. He's back home in Ohio speaking to American workers at a Middleton steel plant. Everybody's wondering where this goes in 2028 because we actually have a really good bench. You have J.D. Vance and also Marco Rubio, and they both, to me, seem like they would make fabulous presidents.
I agree, but Vance it's dropped significantly. He's down 10 points, and Rubio is up 10.
Yeah.
So there used to be a 30-point margin. Now there's only better.
Rubio's got the better job, though, right? Rubio gets to make all these big moves.
Well, it's all because of their performance on the job.
Yeah.
And what Vance is now trying to do is to do the economic issue, while Rubio does the foreign policy issue. And it might be effective, but he's got a long way to go. And frankly, he's got some catching up to do.
Well, he's got a lot of time to do it. We're still pretty far away. Dick Morris, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Good to see you. All right, coming up next, news from the left, a classic clip of Eric Swalwell. It's so good knowing what we know now.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Matt.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
This Labor Day weekend, we're celebrating Bob's 35th anniversary. So stop in for the best values in furniture and mattresses at our famous everyday low prices. Celebrate Bob's 35th anniversary this Labor Day weekend.
Oh my God! This year, as we gather to celebrate America's 250th, get your yard barbecue ready with Pocket Hose, the world's #1 expanding hose. Our new ballistic outer sleeve is reinforced with a liquid crystal polymer used in bulletproof vests that's 5 times stronger than steel. Turn on the water and it grows into a full-length, full-power hose. Turn it off and it shrinks back to pocket size for easy storage. Upgrade your hose game with Pocket Hose Ballistic. Available now at Home Depot, Walmart, Ace Hardware, and on Amazon with free shipping.
Life with ear ringing sounded like a constant train whistle I couldn't escape. Then I started taking lipoflavonoid. With 60 years of clinical experience, it's the #1 doctor-recommended brand for ear ringing, and now I'm finally free. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
This is our time, you know? His favorite route is the long way around. Now we can take it again. I'm not sure who loves this freedom more, him or me.
Being out here alone is my happy place. Nature can have its threats, but I'm prepared.
I'm not trying to fight wildlife. I just don't want one bad encounter deciding everything.
Carry confidence wherever you go with Byrna. And now it's the biggest sale ever at Byrna.com.
LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points per second and quickly alerts you to identity threats you could miss, like changes to your investment accounts, home title, and loans opened in your name, right on your phone. LifeLock. Join today.
My dad had never been in better shape. Then he had a stroke and passed away. But he had life insurance. So even after he was gone, he was still taking care of us. Ethos.com, 10 minutes, 100% online.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
When Saturday rolls around, I don't want to jump through hoops to watch college football. Good thing DirecTV makes it easy to keep up with my favorite college teams. No hopping between apps or channels.
Stream college football without the hurdles on DirecTV.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Earlier this week, the White House revealed new details in the investigation into former Congressman Eric Swalwell. In those files, we learned Swalwell admitted to having sex multiple times with Christine Fang, the Chinese spy, something he's long denied. He admitted to it, and that's in DOJ files, which makes this old soundbite just so good.
Did the Chinese spy scandal hurt your credibility, or did Republicans just weaponize like a nothing burger, so to speak?
You know, the fact that the FBI and the House Ethics Committee said it was bull. Like, I would hope that would be enough, but like in a disinformation society, like I recognize that it's everyone on the right's favorite meme. My wife tells me all the time, you know what? The second they're not going after you, you're not effective.
Remember what a D-bag this guy was? I mean, he even brings up his wife. My wife's supporting me. She says, if they're not coming after you, you're not doing your job, Eric. He's lying through his teeth. Everybody says this is nothing. I mean, these politicians, it's amazing to watch how insufferable they can be. Well, we got rid of him. That's the good news. Finally, Portugal banning burqas in public. The nation of Portugal, the president, Antonio José Seguro, announcing the new law this week prohibiting the use of coverings that conceal faces or prevent identification in public squares. Bill also bans forcing somebody to cover their face for reasons related to gender, religion, age, or origin. Anyone caught covering the face, you can charge between 150 or 3,000 euros. Portugal, by the way, is a left-wing-led country right now, showing that across the board, that continent of Europe is growing exhausted by the Islamic invasion. France did it first. All right, a very rare Long Island tornado. I got some great video next.
Closed captioning brought to you by MagnaLife Pain and Inflammation Relief Roll-On.
Your muscle and joint inflammation is real. Here's what real customers are saying about MagnaLife Pain and Inflammation Relief Roll-On. It worked great.
Available at your local retailer.
See you Sunday, Jim. Whoa! Delivery.
Thanks, Kirk.
You like that? See you Sunday, Jim.
Sunday.
See you Sunday.
See you Sunday. See you Sunday.
I just got my pilot's license. See you Sunday.
The whole town can feel it. Sunday's coming.
The NFL on CBS, streaming all season on Paramount+.
See you Sunday.
That's my boy Cam Scudley.
Whoa!
Hydration or creatine?
Most people think they have to choose, but with Create, you don't. That's because we've combined creatine and electrolytes into one simple on-the-go stick. Get electrolytes to help replenish what you lose through sweat, plus 5 grams of creatine to help support strength, power, and recovery. And with flavors like watermelon, lemon, lime, and passion fruit, this combo has never tasted so good. 2 supplements, 1 stick, one less thing to worry about.
If your dog struggles with stiff joints, low energy, messy poops, or an itchy coat, the cause might be sitting in your dog's food bowl right now. Kibble. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete, gently air-dried, packed with real canine superfoods to help your dog unlock puppy-like energy, smoother digestion, healthier joints, shinier coats, and more. Thousands have already made the switch. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
Our nurse-led care anticipates needs before they're voiced. From skilled nursing to companion care that renews the soul.
Hi, I'm Mike Hammond with Signal Relief. If your back bothers you day after day, you know it doesn't just affect your back. It changes how you stand, walk, sleep, and how you feel about yourself. Maybe you smile through the grandkids' game, the grocery store, the yard work, or the family trip, quietly counting the minutes until you must sit down, or maybe you just miss those moments altogether. I know how frustrating it is when your body starts making decisions for you. And that's why I'm proud to introduce Signal Core, our new back support system built specifically for everyday backaches. More technology means more relief, and Signal Core has twice the technology as the original patch, and it comes with our money-back guarantee. It's targeted drug-free back support that you can wear through the day. Try Signal Core today by going to signalrelief.com and order your Signal Core.
I just got put on special assignment.
You're partnering with one of the most ruthless mobsters in history.
I didn't see that one coming.
You don't want nothing to do with all that trouble.
Trouble is what I do.
By any means. Rated R, September 4th.
Do you believe in miracles? Is this not a miracle? All these homes here are mortgage-free homes.
This amenity center, along with this community, speaks volumes without even saying a word.
It's like a big dining room table in your house. This amenity center is going to bring so many families together all day, every day.
The only way that this happens is out of people's generosity and kindness. Every single bit makes a difference in someone's life.
Go to T2T.org.
And finally tonight, it was a wild night here last night in New York. This is Nassau County, right near Kennedy Airport, right near Queens. Look at this tornado right on the beach. Just Nassau, right next to Queens. Took out some beach clubs. Look at that twister, though. Let's show you some of the damages. We got great video. A friend of mine sent these in. That's a beach club right there on the water getting torn up by a twister that came through. There's the aftermath right there. I mean, you don't see that kind of stuff around here. It was very close to New York City. Infinity's up next. We'll see you back here on Monday.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.